If life is temporary, why worry so much? Buddhist wisdom for the anxious mind. The paradox of worry in a temporary life. There are nights when we lie in bed with the lights off, but the mind won't rest. Thoughts come in waves. What if I lose my job? What if something happens to the people I love? What if I fail? It's a quiet fear that many of us carry, and it shows up in everyday life, not just in big moments. A delayed message, a change in plans, a silence that lasts a little too long, all can trigger anxiety. Not because we're weak, but because we care. And deep down, we're afraid of losing what we love. And yet, we all know things change. Nothing lasts forever. We've heard it since we were young. People come and go, bodies age, relationships shift. But knowing that doesn't mean we've accepted it. There's a gap between what we understand and what we feel. That's the paradox. We get that life is temporary, but we live as if it shouldn't be. So we suffer, not just from actual loss, but from the fear of loss that lingers in the background. The philosopher Montaigne said, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." Our minds imagine the worst, hoping to protect us. And that pattern runs deep. Early humans who stayed alert to danger had better chances of survival. That same system now reacts to things like emails or awkward silences, treating them like emergencies. But instead of keeping us safe, it keeps us anxious, and it wears us down. Worry pulls us out of the present and drains the joy from what's right in front of us. The more we try to plan or control everything, the more unsettled we feel, because control is always limited. We treat uncertainty like a problem we can solve, when really, it's something we need to live with. This is a human experience. Students, parents, elders, we all worry in different ways. Even those who understand impermanence still struggle to let go. The issue isn't that life changes. The issue is how we relate to that change. And that's where Buddhism begins, not by denying reality, but by helping us meet it with more clarity and less fear. The Buddha saw that worry and suffering don't come just from what happens, but from how tightly we hold on. When we resist change, we suffer twice, once from the loss and once from our refusal to accept it. In the next part, we'll explore how Buddhist insight reveals the roots of this clinging and how we might begin to hold life more gently, even as it changes. Impermanence, understanding life's changing nature. In Buddhism, impermanence, anicca, isn't just a passing observation. It's the foundation of how reality works. Nothing stays the same, not even for a moment. Our bodies change, relationships shift, emotions rise and fade. The Buddha described this clearly. All conditioned things are impermanent. They arise and they pass away. Seeing this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Long before modern science confirmed it, the Buddha had already seen. The world is in motion. Everything built will eventually break down. Everything born will someday dissolve. But if change is so natural, why does it unsettle us so deeply? The Buddha pointed to a simple but powerful answer. We resist impermanence because we don't really believe it. We might say we understand it, but our habits tell another story. We live as if the people we love will always be around. We chase success as if we could hold it still. That illusion, born from avidya or ignorance, is deeply embedded in how we see the world. And when life moves, as it always does, we suffer. Not because of change itself, but because of our unwillingness to flow with it. This resistance is what Buddhism calls attachment, upadana. It's the mental grip that says, "Don't let this go. This is mine. This must stay." But the tighter we hold, the more anxious we become. A new wrinkle, a lost opportunity, a goodbye that arrives too soon. All these small changes feel sharp because we expected things to remain steady. But they don't. As one ancient teaching puts it, from desire arises sorrow, from desire arises fear. If one is free from desire, there is no sorrow. So how could there be fear? This is the heart of the Buddha's first insight. Dukkha. Often translated as suffering, it's really the feeling of unsatisfactoriness that comes from trying to find lasting happiness in things that won't last. Not everything in life is painful, but everything is fragile. Even joy can turn bitter when we try to freeze it. A beautiful flower eventually wilts. If we're attached to its bloom, we feel grief when it fades. Another layer of this suffering comes from how we see ourselves. We tend to think there's a solid me behind all our experiences. My body, my plans, my future. But the Buddha taught anatta, not self. What we call I is not a fixed thing, but a stream of changing conditions, thoughts, moods, memories, biology. And when life doesn't go according to that self-image, we feel threatened. But if we see the self more lightly, those experiences lose some of their sting. Neuroscience now confirms this. The brain rewires constantly. We're not frozen, we're fluid. And that's not bad news. It's freeing. Even science echoes this. Our bodies replace cells every second. Stars are born and die. Nothing in the known universe is standing still. So when we expect our life to stay fixed, our roles, our comforts, we're actually going against the grain of how nature works. So if impermanence is everywhere, why is it still so hard to live with? Because understanding change isn't the same as being at peace with it. Most of us grasp the idea, yeah, things change. But when it touches something we love, we tense up. That's why the Buddha didn't just explain the truth. He gave a path. The Four Noble Truths don't just describe suffering, they show a way through it. First, we acknowledge it. Then we see what fuels it: clinging, misperception. Third, we recognize freedom is possible. And fourth, we walk the path, training the mind to meet life with more clarity and less fear. So the truth of impermanence doesn't ask us to give up on life. It asks us to see it more clearly. Not as something to lock down or preserve, but as something to be met, moment by moment, with honesty and care. That shift alone can begin to soften worry. Because when we stop expecting life to stand still, we stop being shocked when it moves. And from that place, clearer, lighter, we begin to ask different questions. If clinging causes suffering, how do we actually let go? What does it mean to live with presence instead of resistance? That's where the real path begins, not in theory, but in daily practice. Letting go, Buddhist practices to overcome worry. Letting go doesn't mean we stop caring. That's a common misunderstanding. In Buddhism, to let go means to stop clinging, not to withdraw from life, but to stop squeezing it so tightly that we make ourselves suffer. Acceptance, in this context, is not apathy. It's the courage to meet life as it is, without trying to force it into what we wish it to be. Imagine you're sick. Acceptance doesn't mean ignoring treatment. It means doing what's wise for your health, while dropping the added mental burden. Why me? This shouldn't be happening. The suffering in the body is real, but we often double it with resistance in the mind. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "It's like holding a hot coal. We burn not just because it's hot, but because we refuse to let go." The more we resist uncertainty, the more it tightens its grip. But when we acknowledge that this too shall pass, we shift from panic to presence. Acceptance clears the fog, so we can see what's needed without being pulled in every direction. That's where mindfulness comes in. Worry lives in the future. What ifs? What then? What next? Mindfulness brings us back to now. When we're mindful, we pay attention to what's actually happening. This breath, this step, this task. The Buddha placed mindfulness, sati, at the heart of the Eightfold Path because it's the gateway to sanity. Simple practices help. Eating and tasting, walking and feeling your steps. When a worry arises, what if I fail tomorrow? You notice it as just that. A thought. Not a prophecy. Not a threat. Just a passing cloud in the sky of the mind. Neuroscience now confirms what the Buddha intuited. Mindfulness reduces reactivity in the brain's fear circuits. It helps us step out of the loop. But mindfulness alone isn't enough. We need insight. And this is where meditation deepens the path. In Vipassana, insight meditation, we observe how sensations, thoughts, and feelings arise and fade. Sit quietly and feel your breath. Each inhale begins and ends. Each sound comes and goes. Over time, we stop just knowing impermanence. We feel it. And when we do, our grip starts to soften. Wisdom, panya, is seeing clearly. It asks simple but cutting questions. Is this worth losing my peace over? Can worry change the outcome? Often the answer is no. As Shantideva said, if a problem can be solved, solve it. If not, worrying won't help. Wisdom brings us back to what we can influence. Our response, our values, our care. You can't stop change, but you can show up with clarity and presence. Another path to release is compassion. Worry often locks us into a tight circle of self. My future, my problem, my fear. But when we look around and see that everyone carries uncertainty, we start to breathe differently. Helping others lightens our own mind. We don't feel so alone in the storm. The Buddha encouraged metta, loving kindness, not just to be good, but because it frees us. The more we turn toward others, the less room fear has to grow. So what does letting go look like? It's not dramatic. It's gentle. Like holding a bird, not too tight, not too loose. You work with care, but don't stake your self-worth on success. You love fully, but know you can't stop time. You plan, but accept that plans may change. When worry arises, as it will, you pause. You breathe. You remember. This is impermanent too. And then you ask, what can I do right now that helps? Sometimes it's an action. Sometimes it's a softening. But every time you let go, even a little, you taste freedom. Even monks have to practice this daily. It's not about never worrying. It's about not letting worry drive your life. As the Buddha said, there is no fear for one whose mind is not filled with desires. The less we cling, the less we fear. And in that space, something deeper appears. Peace, clarity, courage. Embracing change, finding peace and meaning in impermanence. We often assume that if nothing lasts, then nothing really matters. But Buddhism turns that thought around. Because nothing lasts, everything matters. If life were permanent, we might take it for granted. But because it's fragile, we're invited to show up more fully. That's the hidden gift of impermanence. It sharpens our presence. A beautiful moment isn't less meaningful because it ends. It's meaningful because it ends. If a flower bloomed forever, we'd probably stop noticing it. But knowing it won't last makes us pay attention. We pause. We breathe it in more deeply. The Buddha's final words were not gloomy, but grounded. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with heedfulness. It was a reminder, not to cling, but to live awake. To see that this fleeting life is worth caring about, not despite its impermanence, but because of it. Impermanence doesn't make life meaningless. It gives life urgency, clarity, and beauty. Every conversation could be the last. Every ordinary moment, a quiet breakfast, a shared glance, becomes extraordinary when we know it won't repeat exactly the same way again. Even philosophies outside Buddhism, like Stoicism, echo this truth. Memento mori, remember that you will die, not to make you fearful, but to help you live honestly. As Marcus Aurelius said, loss is only change, and change is nature's delight. When we stop treating change as a problem, we begin to treat life as an unfolding story, not a static possession. So how do we live with this constant change without falling into anxiety? Not by pretending things won't hurt, but by cultivating a quiet trust that we can meet life moment by moment with steadiness. Instead of bracing for every wave, we learn to ride them. We stop trying to stop the ocean. We learn to surf. This kind of trust isn't blind optimism. It's based on lived experience, on discovering that we don't need everything to go our way in order to be okay. We begin to trust the process, that joy and sorrow will both come and go, and we can stay centered through it all. Like bamboo bending in the wind, we learn that flexibility is strength. When we don't break every time something shifts, worry begins to loosen. And when worry softens, space opens. What fills that space? Compassion, presence, purpose. When our mind is no longer spinning about the future, we can finally be here, with the people in front of us, with the life we already have. And strangely, that awareness of impermanence makes us more loving, not less. We realize everyone we meet is also facing change, loss, uncertainty. And in that shared truth, there's connection. We stop chasing status or perfection and start investing in what matters. Kindness, honesty, depth, creativity, growth. One step at a time, we shift from grasping to giving. Of course, this insight isn't just an idea. It needs to be felt again and again. That's why many Buddhist teachers recommend a quiet morning reflection. I am alive today. This day is a gift. Not to be dramatic, just to be real. Because when you remember life won't wait, small things change. You forgive sooner. You argue less. You hold people closer. You stop postponing your values. And when decisions arise, you ask, if I had 1 year to live, would this still matter? Often, the things we obsess over shrink under that light. The mind prioritizes. And slowly, a new rhythm sets in. Not a frantic rush, but a gentler urgency. To live well now. As the Buddha said, better to live one day seeing the rise and fall of things than 100 years without ever seeing it. To see impermanence is to wake up. And in waking up, we begin to suffer less. Not because life stops changing, but because we stop fearing change. So, why worry so much if life is temporary? The Buddhist answer is simple, but profound. You don't have to. Worry is not a life sentence. It's a habit. One that can be seen, understood, and gently let go. Life's impermanence isn't here to torment us. It's here to show us what matters. To remind us, love deeply, live honestly, let go when it's time. Yes, we can't hold on to each passing moment, but we can be fully present for them. And when we are, something shifts. The fear fades. The mind clears. And in its place, we discover a quiet strength, a kind of peace that no change can take away.